The wind howled across the frozen parking lot, carrying the faint, guttural roar of a beast that didn't belong. Inside the Arctic Odyssey amusement park, under a sky bruised with November clouds, Elena Martinez pulled her parka tight and checked her watch, 11:47 p.m. Her boots crunched on the icy path to the polar bear enclosure, her breath fogging in the frigid air. She was alone, as she often was, the only caretaker left on the graveyard shift. The park was silent, save for the distant hum of a failing heater and the restless pacing of Koda, the 1,200-pound polar bear who'd been the park's star for a decade. Elena didn't see the shadow shift behind the reinforced glass. She didn't hear the low growl that wasn't hunger but rage. In 30 seconds, her life, and the illusion of Arctic Odyssey, would shatter forever. I'm Lisa Campbell, and for 20 years, I've chased stories where humans and wild animals collide, where nature's raw power exposes our fragility, our arrogance, our greed. This is one of those stories, a tragedy that unfolded in the small Canadian town of Churchill, Manitoba, on November 17, 2025, when a polar bear named Koda turned on Elena Martinez, a 32-year-old caretaker who loved him like family. It's a story of a woman who gave everything to a creature born free but chained to a fading amusement park, a place where dreams of Arctic wonder became a nightmare of neglect. What happened that night wasn't just an attack, it was a reckoning, a mirror held up to a society that cages wild things for profit and calls it entertainment. This is the story of Elena, Koda, and the lies we tell ourselves when we think we can tame the untamable. Elena Martinez was no stranger to hard work. Born in 1993 in a small fishing village in Newfoundland, she grew up with salt in her hair and calluses on her hands. Her father, a crab fisherman, taught her to respect the ocean's moods. Her mother, a schoolteacher, gave her a love for books and a stubborn streak. By 18, Elena was studying marine biology at Dalhousie University, dreaming of saving endangered species. But student loans piled up, and dreams don't pay bills. At 25, she took a job at Arctic Odyssey amusement park in Churchill, Manitoba, a remote town on the edge of Hudson Bay, known as the polar bear capital of the world. The park promised authentic Arctic experiences, but Elena found herself mopping floors, feeding seals, and scrubbing algae from Koda's pool. Elena was quiet but fierce, with dark eyes that missed nothing and a laugh that could warm a room. She wore her black hair in a practical braid, her parka patched from years of wear. Colleagues described her as the heart of Arctic Odyssey's skeleton crew. She'd stay late, every night, said coworker Sarah Tremblay. She'd talk to Koda like he was her kid, telling him about her day, her dreams. She thought she could make his life better, even in that place. Elena's bond with Koda was special. She'd spend hours by his enclosure, sketching his massive paws in a worn notebook, noting his moods. She fought for better food when budgets were cut, sneaking him extra fish when management wasn't looking. But the park was dying, attendance had plummeted since the pandemic, and corporate owners, Arctic Ventures Incorporated, slashed staff and maintenance. Elena's shifts stretched to 16 hours, her pay stagnant at $19 an hour. She was exhausted, but she stayed for Koda. He's got no one else, she told her sister, Maria, in a late-night call. If I leave, who's going to make sure he's okay? Koda was born in 2014 on the sea ice of Hudson Bay, a cub with fur like fresh snow and eyes like black marbles. At 6 months, he was orphaned when poachers killed his mother. Rescued by a wildlife patrol, he was sold to Arctic Odyssey at age 2, a charismatic megafauna meant to draw crowds. Billed as the Ice King, Koda performed twice daily, diving for fish, waving his massive paws, roaring on cue for tourists who snapped selfies through scratched plexiglass. His enclosure, a 10,000-square-foot concrete pool surrounded by fake icebergs, was a pale imitation of the Arctic. By 2025, at 11 years old, Koda weighed 1,200 pounds, his once lustrous coat dull, his eyes clouded with stress. Polar bears are apex predators, evolved for vast, icy wildernesses. In the wild, they roam thousands of miles, hunt seals, and swim for days. In captivity, they pace, they chew bars, they lose their minds. Dr. Hannah Weiss, a zoologist who studied Koda in 2023, noted, his stereotypic behaviors, pacing, head swaying, were textbook signs of captivity stress. He was a wild animal in a concrete cage, and no amount of fish or toys could change that. Arctic Odyssey's records, later leaked, showed Koda's pool hadn't been properly cleaned in months, his diet was inconsistent, and veterinary checks were skipped to cut costs. Koda's roars, once a crowd-pleaser, had grown deeper, angrier. Elena noticed it too. "He's not himself," she wrote in her notebook. "Something's wrong." November 17, 2025, was a bitter night in Churchill, the temperature plunging to -20 degrees Celsius. Arctic Odyssey had closed early, its gates locked, its neon sign flickering. Elena was on the graveyard shift, tasked with checking enclosures after a storm had knocked out half the park's power. The polar bear exhibit's heater was failing, and ice was forming on Koda's pool. Management had ignored her requests for repairs, citing budget constraints. At 11:30 p.m., Elena grabbed her flashlight, clipboard, and a bucket of fish, her nightly ritual to check on Koda. The enclosure was dark, the overhead lights out. Her flashlight beam cut through the gloom, catching Koda's silhouette against the fake iceberg. He was pacing, his massive head swinging side to side, his breath steaming. "Hey, big guy," Elena called softly, her voice steady despite the cold. She approached the service gate, a reinforced steel door leading to the maintenance area behind the pool. The lock was finicky, rusted from years of neglect. She jiggled her key, cursing under her breath as it stuck. What happened next unfolded in seconds but would be dissected for years. The gate clicked open, but the latch didn't fully catch. Koda, alerted by the sound, stopped pacing. Elena stepped into the maintenance area, her flashlight scanning the pool's edge. She didn't see the gate inch open behind her. Koda's eyes locked on her, his body low, muscles coiled. Polar bears are silent hunters, their paws soft as snow. He crossed the enclosure in 3 bounds, a white blur in the dark. Elena turned at the last moment, her scream cut short as 1,200 pounds of muscle and fury slammed into her. Koda's jaws closed on her shoulder, dragging her to the concrete. She fought, flailing with her flashlight, but it was like fighting a storm. Blood pooled on the ice, black in the moonlight. Koda didn't maul her for long, less than a minute, investigators later estimated, but it was enough. When he retreated to his pool, Elena lay still, her parka shredded, her body broken. At 12:03 a.m., a security guard, Michael Chen, found her during a routine patrol. "I heard this sound," he later told police, his voice shaking. "Like a low rumble, then nothing. I ran to the enclosure, and there she was, just lying there." Koda was in the water, watching. "I'll never forget his eyes." Chen radioed for help, but paramedics, delayed by the storm, arrived too late. Elena Martinez was pronounced dead at 12:47 a.m., her notebook clutched in her hand, pages stained with blood. The news broke at dawn, a small-town tragedy that exploded into a global story. Polar bear kills caretaker in Canadian park horror, screamed the headline from the Globe and Mail. Social media erupted, with hashtag Justice for Elena trending on X by noon. Posts ranged from grief to outrage. She loved that bear, and it killed her. How does this happen? Wrote user at Arctic Truth. Others blamed the park. Arctic Odyssey is a prison for animals. This was inevitable, posted at WildFreeNow. Churchill's 800 residents were divided. Some mourned Elena, a familiar face at the local diner, leaving flowers outside the park's gates. Others demanded Koda's death, calling him a killer bear. Arctic Ventures Incorporated issued a statement: "We are devastated by the loss of our valued employee, Elena Martinez. Our thoughts are with her family. An investigation is underway." The statement omitted Koda's fate, but rumors swirled that he'd been sedated and confined to a holding pen. The investigation revealed a cascade of failures. The service gate's lock was faulty, flagged by Elena in reports ignored by management. The park's budget cuts had reduced staff to a skeleton crew, leaving Elena alone that night. Koda's enclosure violated Canadian wildlife standards, with inadequate barriers and no backup power for the heater. "This was a preventable tragedy," said Dr. Rachel Kim, a wildlife safety expert. Arctic Odyssey prioritized profit over safety, for humans and animals. Elena's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Arctic Ventures, seeking $5 million. Her sister, Maria, spoke at a press conference, tears streaming. "Elena gave her heart to that place, to Koda. They let her down. They let him down." Animal rights groups, including PETA, seized the moment, staging protests outside the park. Close Arctic Odyssey, read their signs. End Captivity now. A petition to free Koda to a sanctuary garnered 200,000 signatures in a week. Koda's fate hung in the balance. The Manitoba Wildlife Authority debated euthanasia, citing public safety. But advocates, including Dr. Weiss, argued for relocation. "Koda isn't a villain," she told CBC News. "He's a victim of a system that cages wild animals for profit." By December, Koda was transferred to a sanctuary in Ontario, his enclosure at Arctic Odyssey boarded up. The park announced its closure in January 2026, citing financial challenges. Elena's death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a symptom. Arctic Odyssey was one of dozens of failing attractions across the globe, relics of an era when caging wild animals for entertainment was a cultural norm. From SeaWorld's orcas to roadside zoos in the U.S., the captivity industry thrives on spectacle, selling the illusion of control over nature. But at what cost? In 2025 alone, the Humane Society reported 47 incidents of human injury in captive wildlife facilities worldwide. Most went unreported, swept under the rug by corporations like Arctic Ventures. The exploitation of animals like Koda reflects a deeper human flaw: our need to dominate, to commodify the wild. Polar bears aren't performers, they're predators, their instincts honed by millennia. Yet we build concrete pools, train them to wave, and call it family fun. Elena's love for Koda couldn't erase the fact that he was a prisoner, his spirit broken by a 10,000 square foot cage. Her death exposed the lie we tell ourselves, that we can bend nature to our will without consequences. This story also reveals the human toll of exploitation. Caretakers like Elena are often underpaid, overworked, and ignored. Arctic Odyssey's staff cuts left her alone, vulnerable, in a job that demanded her heart but offered no safety net. The entertainment industry chews up people as much as it does animals, discarding both when profits wane. Elena's notebook, recovered from the scene, held a final entry: Koda deserves better. So do I. She was right, but the system failed them both. Society's reaction, grief, outrage, hashtags, shows our conflicted relationship with captivity. We mourn the human loss but hesitate to confront our role in it. Every ticket to a zoo, every selfie with a caged animal, fuels an industry that thrives on suffering. Elena's death forced Churchill, and the world, to ask, why do we keep wild animals in cages? Is it for education, as parks claim, or for our own amusement? And when the cage door opens, who pays the price? I've spent 2 decades chasing stories like this, standing in blood-stained snow, interviewing grieving families, staring into the eyes of animals who don't belong behind bars. Elena's story hits harder than most. Maybe it's because I see myself in her, a woman who believed she could make a difference, who loved too fiercely for her own good. I've been that naive, that stubborn. I've stood at enclosures, wondering what the animals were thinking, knowing they'd never tell me. Reporting this story broke something in me. I sat with Maria, Elena's sister, as she showed me photos: Elena at 10, holding a starfish; Elena at 20, graduating with honors; Elena at 30, smiling beside Koda's pool. I read her notebook, page after page of love and frustration, her dreams of a better life for Koda and herself. I walked the empty paths of Arctic Odyssey, the wind carrying the ghost of Koda's roars. I felt the weight of a system that grinds down everyone, human, animal, dreamer, beast. What haunts me most is the question Elena's death leaves unanswered: can we ever coexist with the wild without destroying it, or ourselves? I don't know. I've seen too many cages, too many scars, to believe in easy answers. But I know this: Elena Martinez deserved better. Koda deserved better. And until we stop treating wild animals as props, there will be more Elenas, more Kodas, more nights when the cage door swings open and the truth spills out in blood. On a cold morning in February 2026, I stood outside the shuttered gates of Arctic Odyssey, snow swirling around me. The sign still hung, its letters faded: Experience the Arctic. Beyond the gates, Koda's enclosure was empty, the fake icebergs crumbling. Elena's notebook is now with her family, a testament to a woman who saw beauty in a broken system and paid the ultimate price. Her final words, scrawled in ink and blood, linger like a warning: he's not a monster. We are.